Hello, welcome to White Creek Wellness Center's cooking class, and today we're making tomato soup and crackers. First we're going to show you the tomato soup, and this tomato soup can be made either raw or cooked, and so we're going to do both versions. The raw food is for those that are here for education in more of a stricter lifestyle for the condition that they're learning about how to overcome. So anyway, I'm going to start off with the raw tomato soup, and so you can see we have lots of homegrown tomatoes from our garden and our greenhouse. Actually, this is the middle of November, and we're having wonderful tomatoes from our greenhouse. And so what I do is I fill up the blender with tomatoes, slicing them into, taking the tops off and then slice them into fourths or halves depending on the size, and blending them up. And I'm going to do this one in a different way. I'm not going to blend it up really complete, because there's a way that you can lower the lectin content of tomatoes, and also which causes you to be able to have more absorption of your minerals. And so it has the anti-nutrients. What we're going to do is we're going to blend it up lightly so that kind of knocks the meat off the skin, and then separates the seeds, but it doesn't completely blend up the skins and the seeds, so that you can strain those out. Okay, so I can still see the whole seeds in there. They're not blended up. And then I will take my nice strainer here and strain it. Of course, you don't have to do this if you're not having any health problems. Those polyphenols and lectins and tannins are actually have healthy properties to them also. So we're doing it basically for those that are having absorption problem. We have a health guest here that's learning how to take care of her iron deficiency, and so she's needing to have her seeds and her nuts and her grains all soaked, because that also lowers the content of the lectins and polyphenols. So when we make our crackers today, we're going to make it from grains that have been already soaked, and so that the content of the anti-nutrients are lowered. So as you can see, it pretty much almost all leaves except for the seeds and the skin. And you have a nice smooth tomato soup, actually. Okay, so I'm going to pour this back into the blender and add some raw almonds. Now these almonds have already been soaked and dehydrated, so whenever I need some low lectin or low tannin almonds, I can just grab some. And I pour a few almonds in there, and the recipes are on our website, which is wcwctn.com. And I don't necessarily use measuring spoons, and I've been doing this so long, and after you cook this way for quite a while, you don't need to use the measuring equipment. So I put a little bit of honey, which is from our bees, last year's bees, and some Himalayan salt, little bit of onion powder. And we're going to blend that up until the almonds are very smooth. Okay. Okay, now we have a nice creamy tomato soup, and I'm not going to cook this, but I'm going to warm it up so that it is under 118 degrees, which is where the enzymes are starting to be destroyed. And this is our homegrown basil from our garden, and I'm going to put a lot in there because since I'm not cooking it, it's going to take a lot of this basil to actually the flavor to go into the tomatoes, and I will take it out later. But I'm going to leave it on this burner. These glass top burners usually have a warmer burner, which is very low temp. And if I stir it, set the timer and stir it every 20 minutes or so, then it keeps it at the right temperature to where it's not actually cooking. And so that one is done. Now I'm going to do and it's going to be another 2 hours till we eat, so that'll have plenty of time to get the flavors from the basil into the tomato. Now the cooked one is basically the same thing. I'm going to cut up a bunch of tomatoes, and if you like to have like a thicker tomato soup, you can always take some dehydrated tomatoes and I dehydrated those from our summer outdoor garden tomatoes, and they're nice to use if you want to make like pizza sauce and you want to make it a little thicker. You can take these dehydrated tomatoes, and I dehydrated them under 118 degrees, so they're actually still raw. A lot of dried fruits are dehydrated at higher temperatures, so they're not really considered raw. But these are, and so I would put them in like a NutriBullet, or in the dry section. Sometimes there's dry blenders that come with the Vitamix. Otherwise you can just use the regular one and just put them in the bottom and whiz them, make them into powder, and then you can add them to your other tomatoes, your other fresh tomatoes, and cook them down, add a little powder to it, and makes it thick. So anyway, I'm making a little bit more because there's more people here eating cooked food than there are eating raw food. So I'm going to fill the blender up. And I'm not going to bother straining these because, of course, people, if they're able to eat cooked food, they're fairly healthy, and it's not going to interfere with their healing. Go ahead and add the onion powder, honey, and salt. A little bit more because I've got this one full. Whoops, more Himalayan salt. And you can always salt to taste later. And you can let people add later their cayenne pepper if they like that, but some people don't like the cayenne, so we leave it out of the cooking part. And this one I blend a little longer. Also, I do not put the nuts in this one because I add nuts and oats, which is cashews and oats, and I put them in after it has cooked for about 15 minutes. Okay, I like to use glass when I'm cooking tomatoes because the acid in the tomatoes, I think, has a reaction on the metal and can pull the metals into the food. So I like using glass. And so I'm going to turn this on high until it simmers, and then I will turn it down to low and just let it lightly simmer until 15 minutes, and then I will take cashews and oats and blend up a little bit and add to the tomato soup and make it nice and creamy, and then cook it again for simmer it lightly for another 10 minutes. And of course the recipe we will place at the end for you. And then I add a little bit of water to this. Blend it till it's very smooth. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the basil, let it simmer the 15 minutes with the soup. I'm not going to put as much in because it will diffuse, or whatever you want to call it, into the soup when it heats up better than if it was just under 118 degrees. Anyway, after this simmers, I'm going to pour this in, stir it, bring it back to a simmer because this cooled it down, and then turn it down on low and lightly simmer it for 10 minutes, and it's done. And I'll take the basil out, and because the flavors are already in there.